Ladies and gentlemen, when you wake up in the morning and the room is quiet and your body is heavy and the world seems still, there is a realization not loud, not dramatic, not even immediate that begins to settle into your bones. It's the awareness that no one is coming, no cavalry, no rescue squad, no magical solution with all the right words and all the right tools to fix the weight you carry. And for many, that truth comes like a slow storm, subtle and creeping until it floods the room you've built with dreams, expectations, and dependencies. People are waiting. They sit by the door of life, hoping someone will open it from the other side. They look out the window and hope something shows up, someone to believe in them, someone to push them, someone to give them permission. But what if that someone never shows? What if every person you've expected to be your crutch is caught up in their own fight, their own storm? What then? Responsibility is terrifying. It means you are accountable. It means that if you fall, you must be the one to rise, that if you fail, you must be the one to rework the plan. No one is coming to do the hard parts for you. They don't see the nights you lie in silence, wondering if your life will ever reflect the person you believed you could be. They don't hear the arguments in your head, the doubts echoing like thunder in an empty cave. But you hear them, and because you do, it's your task, your divine assignment to confront them. We live in a world full of distraction. Convenience has become a god and comfort its temple. People would rather scroll than struggle. They would rather complain than construct. But in the corner of that world, there are still a few who understand that greatness is built on solitary effort, brick by brick, bruise by bruise. These people don't wait for a sign. They become the sign. They don't hope for the light. They ignite it. And if that sounds romantic, let me assure you it is not. It is painful, it is agonizing, but it is necessary. You will never become who you could be by relying on who you already are. Growth is sacrifice, it's discomfort. It's the willingness to admit that no one owes you salvation, not even the world. Especially not the world. The world isn't fair. The world doesn't care if you win or lose. And that's not cruelty, that's neutrality. You are not in a movie where the hero always gets the girl, the job, or the ending monologue. You are in life, and life is as brutal as it is beautiful. So what do? You prepare, you train, you build, not because someone told you to, but because your soul demands it. There is a version of you that's buried under layers of laziness, entitlement, fear, and doubt. Dig. Not tomorrow, now. Dig because no one is coming to do it for you. Dig because time is not waiting. You don't need to be rescued. You need to be revealed. And the only way that happens is when you accept the raw, bitter, empowering truth. It's on you. Your pain isn't an excuse. Your background isn't a cage. Your lack of support isn't a chain. They're reasons, not rules. They may explain where you are, but they do not determine where you go. If your parents didn't guide you, you become the guide. If no one believed in you, you become belief. If every door was shut in your face, you learn how to build your own. The longer you wait for someone to change your life, the longer you delay your transformation. That waiting, that desperate pause for something external to shift it, breeds weakness. Dependency corrodes your spine. You must develop the strength to stand, not because the ground is steady, but because you've learned how to steady yourself. That's what responsibility is. It's lifting the weight even when you're tired. It's showing up even when you're broken. It's building even when the blueprints are torn. The world needs you fully awakened, not half-ass. Leap with one eye open looking for a savior. That savior is the better version of you waiting on the other side of discomfort. And discomfort, if you learn to listen to it, is not your enemy, it's your compass. It shows you where the work is. It reveals where you're still fragile. And that's good, that's holy, because fragility is an invitation to forge strength. You cannot outsource your healing. You cannot subcontract your mission. The throne you were meant to sit on will not be handed to you. You earn it through fire, through nights of silence and days of grind, through choices made when no one is watching and temptations are whispering. You win it with tears, with discipline, with relentless self-honesty. That's how you earn the right to say you didn't wait for life to give you meaning, you gave life your meaning. Most people don't want freedom, not really. They want comfort that feels like freedom, but freedom is expensive. It costs you your victimhood. It costs you your excuses. It costs you your distractions, and most aren't willing to pay that price. But you must be different. Because if you're reading this, if you're listening to this, then deep down, something in you already knows no one is coming. And the moment you accept that is the moment your power begins, because now you are not at the mercy of hope. You are the architect of discipline. You are not asking for permission. You are designing purpose. You are not hoping for opportunity. You are hammering doors open with your bare hands. And every strike, every blow, is a reminder that your fate is not held in the hands of another. It rests in yours. That's the path. That's the burden, and it is glorious. Because once you taste the clarity that comes from full ownership, you will never again be content with dependence. You'll look back at the person who waited for the call, waited for the validation, waited for the help, and you will mourn for them, not because they were weak, but because they didn't know they were already strong. They didn't know the cavalry was never coming because they were the cavalry. There's a moment in every life when the truth can no longer be ignored. Not the convenient truth, not the softened version handed to you by others who want to keep you safe, but the kind that stares back at you in the mirror and doesn't blink. The kind that asks a question with no polite tone, no cushion, no delay. What are you doing with what you've been given? It's in that question that the first breath of radical responsibility is born. It's the moment you stop blaming your circumstances, stop leaning on what others didn't do for you, and begin the dangerous, liberating journey of owning everything that your life is and everything it isn't. That shift is not easy. It's not glamorous. It's not something that makes for comfortable conversation. But it's necessary. Because freedom, real freedom, not just physical, but internal, is impossible without responsibility. You cannot hold the keys to your future if your hands are still full of excuses. There's a story we're all tempted to tell ourselves, one where the reasons we fall short are always outside of us. The lack of support. The people who failed us, the moments that betrayed us, but none of those stories, no matter how true or painful, will ever write your breakthrough. They are the past, and the past has already had its say. Now it's your move. You can't rewrite what happened to you, but you can reframe what it means, and more importantly, you can decide what you do about it. That's the power of radical responsibility. It doesn't ignore the pain. It doesn't deny the injustice, but it refuses to let those things decide your direction. Every time you say, "I can't because," and point outward, you give away a piece of your power. It's easier that way. It feels good in the short term. You get to feel righteous, feel like the world owes you something, but that comfort is a trap. It keeps you still. It keeps you small. Responsibility is the opposite. It's movement. It's momentum. It says, I don't control everything, but I control what I do next. And that control, as small as it may seem, is everything. It's the difference between being a passenger in your own life or being the driver who takes the wheel and accepts the road for what it is: rough, unpredictable, sometimes brutal, but always yours. People fear responsibility because it's heavy. It demands more from you than you think you can give. It means when something breaks, you don't just complain, you get down and fix it. When something hurts, you don't just nurse the wound, you learn why it cut so deep. When something doesn't work, you don't wait for someone else to solve it, you become the solution. That level of ownership is terrifying to those who have never been taught how to carry their own weight. But if you want to live a life of meaning, it's the only way. And what's the alternative? A life where you sit and hope that someone else figures it out for you, that the right person finally shows up, says the right thing, opens the right door. How long will you wait, and what will be left of your soul by the time they do, if they ever do? You weren't born to be a spectator. You weren't born to be passive. You were born to move, to create, to lead. And the first step to becoming who you were meant to be is to stop expecting someone else to carry your cross. You carry it. You bleed. You sweat. You walk. Taking responsibility doesn't mean you have all the answers. It doesn't mean you don't get scared. It means that even when the path is unclear, you start walking. Even when the pain is real, you keep going, because you've made a decision, not a feeling, not a mood, but a decision that this life is yours to live, not anyone else's to control. That decision turns the noise of the world down. It turns the volume up on your own voice. And that voice, if you listen carefully, will tell you what must be done. You'll hear it say, "Get up." When you've been knocked down for the third time in a row, and your knees are scraped and your will is cracked, that voice reminds you that rising is still your choice. You'll hear it say, "Do the work." When everyone else is sleeping in, when distraction tempts you, when comfort calls, that voice cuts through the fog and speaks the truth. There is no growth without grind. And you'll hear it say, "This is on you," not as a punishment, but as a crown. Because when it's on you, it's under your command. The beauty of radical responsibility is that it clears the clutter. It removes the noise. You stop needing everyone to understand you. You stop seeking validation from people who haven't walked your path. You stop waiting for perfect conditions to start building. You build anyway. You stumble, you learn, you adjust, and you build again. You become relentless, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. You finally understand that your freedom isn't a gift someone else gives you. It's a structure you build with your own hands. It's a result of how much truth you're willing to confront and how much weight you're willing to carry without complaint. People confuse responsibility with burden. But there's a kind of burden that builds strength. There's a kind of weight that makes your spine straighter. Responsibility is not a curse, it's the gym for your soul. It's where your character is tested, shaped, and proven. Every act of responsibility, no matter how small, trains you to stand taller, to see further, to act with more intention. And soon, the things that used to break you become the very things that built you. The pain that once defined you becomes the fire that refines you. No one can take that from you, not failure, not betrayal, not the opinions of people too afraid to look at their own lives. When you live with responsibility, you live with power. You're not the kind that controls others, the kind that controls yourself. And that is the rarest, most potent kind of power there is. The kind that makes you unstoppable, not because the world bends to your will, but because you no longer bend to the world's excuses. You have your mission, you have your message, you have your name, your time, your potential. You have enough. And when life tries to convince you otherwise, when it sends storms, delays, heartbreaks, you return to the quiet knowledge you earned through fire. No matter what happens, I own my next step. No matter what breaks, I fix what I can. No matter who leaves, I stay loyal to the vision. Because that's what it means to be free, not to escape the storm, but to face it head on, unshaken by the fact that you must walk it alone. Not afraid of the silence that comes with ownership, but honored by the weight you now carry. That's how you build a life worth living. Not given, not inherited, built with bare hands, clear eyes, and the unshakable truth. This is mine. People are conditioned to avoid discomfort like it's a disease. It's built into the system. Numb the pain, quiet the hunger, distract the mind, dodge the mirror. From a young age, we're taught that if something feels bad, it's probably wrong. That suffering should be escaped, not understood. That the sting in your chest or the tension in your gut is a sign you should turn back, not press forward. But that thinking, though widespread, is a lie, a deadly one. Discomfort isn't a signal to stop, it's a signal to pay attention. To dig deeper, to press in rather than retreat. It's not the enemy, it's the compass. It points to the exact place where growth begins. If you only ever walk paths lined with ease, you'll never find the edge of who you could be. You'll stay soft in the middle, polished on the surface, and hollow beneath. The moment things get hard, you'll crack. The world will shatter your illusions, and you won't have the resilience to rebuild because you never built yourself under pressure. Discomfort is not a curse, it's a training ground. It forces you to confront weakness. It makes you aware of where you're lacking. And that awareness, as painful as it is the key to transformation. The truth is, the things that make you uncomfortable often carry the very answers you've been looking for. That fear of confrontation, it's pointing toward your need for courage. That sense of being overwhelmed. It's showing you where your boundaries are too weak or your focus is too scattered. That tight knot in your chest when you consider a bold move, that's not danger, it's resistance. And resistance is the doorway to mastery. Every great achievement was born through some form of discomfort, mental, physical, emotional. No one grows in still water. You grow when you sweat, when your hands shake, when your mind screams for you to quit and you respond by pushing 1 inch further. But it takes discipline to rewire how you interpret pain. It takes maturity to stop running from the fire and start walking through it with purpose. Not all pain is bad. Not all struggle should be escaped. There is a difference between suffering that destroys and suffering that refines. The discomfort that comes from pursuing your potential is sacred. It is the heat that tempers steel, the friction that sharpens the blade, the weight that builds the muscle, and the longer you run from it, the longer you delay your evolution. People say they want change, but they resist the process that makes change real. They want the outcome, not the cost. They want the trophy, not the training, but you can't be great and comfortable at the same time. Excellence demands discomfort. It demands late nights and early mornings. It demands rejection, doubt, and failure. It demands moments where you want to give up so badly your bones ache. But you get back up because something inside you won't allow surrender. That something, that inner voice that rises in pain, is your compass. And the more you follow it, the stronger it becomes. Pain has a language. It speaks in silence and tension and pressure. It doesn't always come with instructions, but it always comes with direction, if you're willing to listen. But most people don't. They numb it with distraction, they drown it with noise. They scroll and swipe and binge and blame because silence is uncomfortable and discomfort is confrontation. But the very thing they're avoiding is the thing that holds the truth. Discomfort doesn't kill you, it reveals you. It exposes the parts of you still underdeveloped. It shines a light on your fear, your laziness, your excuses, and that exposure is brutal, but necessary. It's not supposed to be easy. The life you want is on the other side of everything you've been avoiding, and if that doesn't scare you a little, you haven't truly grasped what's required. It requires sacrifice, the death of comfort, the daily burial of the easier path. It requires waking up and choosing hard things, not because they feel good in the moment, but because they forge something eternal in you. You become someone you respect, someone you trust, not because life has been smooth, but because you've learned how to walk through fire without losing your soul. There's a lesson in every uncomfortable moment, in every setback, in every failure. The lesson isn't always loud, and it's almost never obvious, but it's there, waiting, and the only way to learn it is to stay present in the pain, not to run, not to hide, but to face it and ask, "What are you here to teach me?" That question is a weapon. It turns adversity into education. It turns suffering into structure. Most will never ask it. They will keep cycling through the same struggle, growing more bitter with each loop, because they refuse to engage discomfort with intention. But you're not like most. If you were, you wouldn't be here. You've already felt that nudge in your chest that says, "Keep going." You've already seen the places where comfort kept you trapped. Now you're learning how to lean into the tension, not out of masochism, but out of hunger. Hunger to grow, to evolve, to become. That hunger is sacred. Protect it. Feed it with discipline. Sharpen it with action. And when the days come, and they will, when the weight is too much and you question everything, return to this truth. Discomfort isn't punishment. It's preparation. You're being prepared for something greater, and greatness always comes wrapped in adversity. You don't get to skip the pain. You don't get to avoid the stretch. You have to go through it. And when you do, when you survive what once scared you, you change, you move different, you walk with weight, not arrogance, but depth, because you've been tested, and those tests, those long nights, hard choices, silent tears, they are your credibility. They are your foundation. They are the proof that you've been somewhere most refused to go, into your discomfort and out the other side better. You were never meant to be comfortable all the time. Comfort is where you catch your breath, not where you build your legacy. You build that in the pressure, in the unknown, in the moments where every cell in your body says, "Stop," and your soul whispers, "Just one more step." That step is where it all changes. And if you keep walking through discomfort with open eyes and willing hands, you'll look back one day and realize the pain didn't destroy you. It shaped you. You didn't suffer for nothing. You suffered for purpose. And in that purpose, you became unstoppable. There comes a moment in your journey when you realize that waiting for someone to hold your hand has delayed your progress far more than failure ever could. It's the moment you stop looking outward for strength and begin mining it from within. That shift, subtle yet profound, is the birth of self-reliance, not just as a strategy but as a foundation. It's when the voices that used to tell you what to do fall silent, and you begin to rely on your own voice, even when it shakes, even when it's unsure. Because that uncertainty, that trembling first step on your own, is where the roots of strength begin to grow. Self-reliance doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean arrogance or rejecting every hand offered to you. It means understanding that no matter who helps you, no matter who supports you, no one else can live your life. No one else can carry your consequences. At the end of the day, it's you and the weight of your choices. And when you grasp that, really grasp it, you stop trying to be rescued. You stop asking others to do the heavy lifting that only your soul is equipped for. You step into the work that is yours and yours alone. Strength isn't something given. It's something discovered, and the discovery only happens when you're willing to walk into uncertainty without a guide. That's what self-reliance looks like. It's standing in the middle of a problem you don't know how to solve, with no blueprint, no mentor, no fallback plan, and figuring it out anyway. You may stumble, you may break, but every time you rise, something in you fortifies, and that something is unshakable because it was earned, not given. We live in a culture that celebrates dependence disguised as connection, where people are told to outsource their responsibility in the name of community. But real community is built on individuals who have first learned to stand alone. Only then can they contribute something of value. If you rely on others for your strength, your identity, or your direction, what happens when they leave? What happens when they change or falter or fail? You collapse with them. That's not connection. That's a trap. You are born with instincts, gifts, and grit. But none of them are activated until you step into the fight for yourself. Not for applause, not for validation, but because your life is your business. It's your garden to tend, your house to build, your soul to shape, and no matter how loud the world gets, how comforting the noise of advice or opinions may feel, you still have to sit with yourself in the silence and ask, what am I made of? That's where the real work begins. It's not glorious, it's not glamorous. There are no crowds cheering when you choose to rise alone. No trophies for learning how to control your emotions instead of blaming others. No medals for showing up for yourself every day when no one else notices. But that quiet consistency, that personal accountability, is the breeding ground of resilience. And once you tap into it, you start to realize you don't need as much as you thought you did. Not in people, not in praise, not in possessions. You just need to know you can count on yourself. Self-reliance forces you to become a student of your own potential. You learn your rhythms, your weaknesses, your strengths. Not through theory, but through trials. You learn what breaks you and what builds you, and you start crafting a blueprint for a life no one else could teach you because no one else has lived your story. That blueprint doesn't come from books or speeches or even role models. It comes from experience, from the deep, grinding, honest work of figuring it out for yourself. The beauty of self-reliance is that it grows with every challenge. The more you face alone, the more you build capacity. Not because you never need help, but because you know how to help yourself first. That knowledge, intimate, earned, internal, is the seed of real power. It's the reason some people walk into rooms and shift the energy without saying a word. They've been through the fire. They didn't outsource the hard parts. They've sat with pain, solved problems, rebuilt themselves in silence. And now they move with weight. That weight isn't something you can fake. It doesn't come from titles or talk. It comes from knowing who you are when everything else is stripped away. When the distractions fall, the relationships fade, the support dries up. What's left, that's where strength is born. In the moments that feel like the end but become the beginning, in the nights where you cry but still show up the next day, in the failures that make you question your worth but never your will. Self-reliance gives you an inner anchor. While the world shifts, you stay steady. While emotions rise and fall, you remain grounded. It doesn't mean you don't feel, it means you don't get lost. You become the kind of person who, even in chaos, knows how to return home to yourself. That skill, that self-trust is rare, and it is earned only through practice. You have to choose it when it's inconvenient. You have to train it when it's uncomfortable. You have to defend it when others want you dependent, manageable, predictable. There will be people who don't understand your need to stand alone, who think it's cold or prideful or extreme. Let them think. You weren't built for the comfort of consensus. You were built to develop the kind of internal clarity that doesn't beg for approval. Because once you find your own compass, you stop needing to borrow someone else's. You stop asking for permission to be powerful. You simply are, and that power, the quiet, rooted, immovable kind, is what turns adversity into growth and solitude into strength. You will still need people, we all do, but need is different from dependence. You share your life, but you don't hand it away. You welcome others in, but you don't hand them the keys to your mind or your future. You love, but you don't lose yourself. That's the balance self-reliance teaches. The ability to hold yourself fully so you can offer something real to the world, not just fragments of a person still searching for validation. Every time you choose to rely on yourself, you're building a structure no one can take away. You're proving to yourself that you are capable of more than you once believed, and that proof, that record of wins earned in silence, is what becomes your backbone. Not ego, not bravado, just truth. Truth forged in discipline, in solitude, in sacrifice. And when the world tries to shake you, that truth will hold. Because you didn't borrow your strength, you built it. Alone, excuses are seductive. They sound like logic, they wear the mask of reason, and they whisper comfort in the middle of discomfort. They make failure feel acceptable and inaction seem justified. They tell you that you're not ready, that your past disqualifies you, that the timing isn't right. They wrap themselves around your ambition like vines, slow and silent, until you can no longer see your potential through the thick of your own rationalizations. But if you ever hope to become who you were meant to be truly, permanently, you must confront this truth. Transformation requires the death of excuses, not the negotiation, not the moderation, not the temporary silencing. The death. As long as you allow excuses to breathe, your future cannot. The most dangerous excuses are not the loud, obvious ones. They are the subtle ones, the ones dressed up as self-care, the ones that pretend to protect you from disappointment, the ones that disguise themselves as humility when really they're just fear dressed in modesty. Every time you say maybe later, every time you tell yourself you're too tired, too busy, too unprepared, you are reinforcing a story where your limitations run the show. You are feeding the part of you that is afraid to rise, and make no mistake. Fear is always at the root of excuses. Whether it's fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of responsibility, it's fear that convinces you to settle. People don't change because they finally get more time or more resources. They change because they finally get sick of their own excuses. They reach a point where the cost of staying the same becomes greater than the cost of becoming someone new. That point isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet ache, a moment alone, a mirror, a question that won't go away, but once it hits you, once you see that you've been the one standing in your own way, you can't unsee it. And from that moment forward, you are responsible for what happens next. Excuses are clever. They will evolve as you do. When you grow past one, another appears. When you break through fear, distraction shows up. When you conquer distraction, entitlement takes its place. It is a constant battle, which means transformation is not a single decision. It's a lifestyle. It's a daily war between the version of you that's convenient and the version of you that's capable. And the difference between those two versions is the story you choose to believe. The convenient version always comes with a reason to stop. The capable version always finds a reason to begin anyway. You will never have all the answers. You will never feel fully ready. If you're waiting for perfect, you'll wait your whole life. Excuses thrive in that space between intention and action. They convince you to postpone, to research more, to rest a little longer. But transformation isn't polite. It doesn't wait for you to be comfortable. It demands discomfort. It demands risk. It demands that you leave behind the stories that have kept you safe and step into a truth that may break you before it builds you. That breaking is necessary, the old version of you, the one that blamed others, the one that needed validation, the one that waited for permission, cannot come with you. You have to let them go, and that kind of death hurts. But in that death is rebirth. You emerge clearer, lighter, sharper, because you're no longer dragging the weight of your excuses with you. You're moving with purpose, not permission, and that shift is everything. There are moments when you'll hear your old excuses come knocking. They'll sound familiar, maybe even comforting. You'll be tempted to let them in, but now you know the price. Every excuse you accept costs you a piece of your potential. It delays your progress, it dulls your fire, it steals from your future, and for what? Temporary relief, a fleeting sense of safety. That's not worth the years it could cost you. That's not worth the dreams you bury alive just to avoid temporary discomfort. The more you train yourself to act despite your excuses, the weaker they become. Action kills excuses. Even the smallest step forward disrupts the narrative that says you can't. You don't need to leap every time. You just need to move, to challenge the voice in your head that says you should wait, or that someone else could do it better, or that your past disqualifies you. That voice isn't truth, it's a habit. And habits can be broken, replaced, rewritten. Transformation is not for the weak-hearted. It is violent in its honesty. It exposes everything you've been hiding behind, and it forces you to take ownership of your time, your energy, your mind. But that's where freedom is, not in getting what you want without effort, but in realizing that nothing owns you anymore, not your doubt, not your story, not your past. When you kill your excuses, you kill your limitations. You break the chains of I wish and replace them with I will. You are not the only one who has suffered. You are not the only one who has struggled, been abandoned, misunderstood, betrayed, broken. But those who rise, those who transform, are the ones who choose not to be defined by that suffering. They use it. They extract fuel from their pain. They build from the ashes. They tell themselves the truth, even when it's ugly, and they commit to growth anyway. Because the cost of staying the same is no longer acceptable, you can't serve the future and serve your excuses at the same time. One must die for the other to live, and no one can make that decision for you. You can listen to speeches, you can read books, you can pray, but until you decide, deep in your soul, that your time for excuses is over, nothing changes. The world owes you nothing. Your life is your responsibility. And your transformation is not a possibility. It's a decision. Burn the backup plan. Kill the narrative that says you're too late, too broken, too ordinary. You're not. You're just tired. Tired from dragging the weight of a mindset that never served you. Lay it down, light it up, step into the space where everything you've been avoiding lives and own it. The fear, the risk, the unknown, it's all part of the process. Excuses will always offer you a way out. But freedom only comes to those who choose to stay in, even when it hurts, even when it's hard, even when the old self screams to be kept alive. Let it die. That's the only way something greater is born.